this secret location in North Korea that is going to play host to the first round of summit talks between the two Koreas. We are showing you live pictures of the building, and South Korean media outlets are reporting that the two leaders are going to arrive there very, very soon. So we'll be sure to bring you the pictures from there as the two Koreas prepare to get down to the real meat and bones of hopefully finding a concrete settlement, or at least putting down some specifics and figures in an agreement that everyone can be happy with. Professor Song, if you could just walk us through what the United States, ideally, the outcome Washington would like to see from this summit.
Well, remember that they had the tug of war between the North Korea and the U.S., and the important point was the meaning of the denuclearization, and North Korea wanted the end of the war declaration first. So which one comes first has been kind of a tension between the two. From the White House point of view, I think they at least want the commitment that would kind of fit to their definition of the denuclearization, a verifiable, irreversible state of the end of the nuclear program. But, excuse me, being short of that, I think that the alternative that President Moon has prepared is some sort of commitment for inspection of the North Korean weapons program and how that could be dismantled. So that means the identification of their nuclear weapons they have developed so far, which is kind of a tall order for them. And probably North Korea will try to resist to the extent possible, not giving up too much at this stage. But the meager response from the North Korea will not be welcome in the White House.
At the early stages of this process, when everything was moving at a breakneck speed, we were thinking that that CVID, this complete, verifiable and irreversible denuclearization, that may possibly be something that might happen. Do you think it's time that everyone sharply reduce their expectations of what is possible?
That's what President Moon is banking on. I think that this, the one-shot deal may not be possible because of what has been accumulated historically between the position of North Korea and the U.S., but something that can bridge the gap and show the definite, not the glimmer of hope, but the definite roadmap to the complete denuclearization. I think there will suffice. I think that there are a lot of experts in the nuclear program has been saying that one-shot deal of doing something to make the nuclear program go away is not even possible anyway. It has to be the step-by-step process. And at this point, the first step should be a very substantial one so that the President Donald Trump can persuade his voters, Congress, and the prospect of his prolonged presidency. So in that sense, something has to be, it should be billed as a breakthrough development.
Right. Well, there's the various different scenarios that are playing out between experts and analysts who are saying they could see a situation where North Korea is allowed to remain a nuclear weapons state, but one that becomes a more responsible member of the nuclear club, so to speak, because there's no doubt now that it truly is a nuclear power. Just to remind you that we are covering the third InterKorean Summit of the year, and we are expecting the arrival of the leaders of South and North Korea at that negotiation area in Pyongyang. The cars are in the area, and we are hearing that they are due to arrive any moment now, and we'll bring you that live, but we are still waiting. But it doesn't seem to make sense that Kim Jong-un and his regime would voluntarily just hand over their nuclear weapons when it's the #1 bargaining chip that they have and have fought tooth and nail to keep. And if they were to give up their nuclear weapons, they'd very fast drop down the list of countries anyone really cares about or worries about, which isn't what they want.
That is true, but they announced that they accomplished the end of the nuclear program, completion of the nuclear program last year. That was after they claimed that they successfully did a hydrogen bomb testing. So one of the possibilities is that the North Korea is de facto nuclear power at this point. Even if they dismantle everything, their knowledge is there, the manpower who developed the program is still there. So given time, they can rebuild it up.
Yeah.
So I think that North Korea could say that, well, we can give it up now if the return for giving it up is substantial enough, and they're going for the big deal.
I'll bring you in a moment, Jung-hee, but something just popped into my head. Do you think that the American media, the way they talk about North Korea and its nuclear prowess, and it has the capability to launch an ICBM, nuclear-tipped ICBM, towards New York and places on the East Coast, do you think that's overblown and just a way of sensationalism, or do you think that people in America should genuinely be concerned at the nuclear threat posed by North Korea?
Well, North Korea, if anything, is a rogue nation who had and did say anything and very provocative things. You know, I still remember the Seoul will be inferno of hot fires raining down and missiles.
Yeah.
And they did the same thing about the U.S. So it's kind of surprising that the Donald Trump has responded in sometimes a like manner, tit for tat. And that.
Do you think the Americans were expecting that response from?
No,
President Trump?
I don't think so. That's why there's so much criticism about his style and the engagement of that low level kind of the playground fight of that. And the irony, as we were talking about, is that
it seems to have worked.
How we got to this
At
place.
least thus far. Yeah. Well, Jung-hee, just talk us through what we're seeing on the screen there. I believe some officials are starting to filter in.
Right. We have seen North Korean leaders' sister Kim Yo-jong appear on screen. I think she has arrived at the Paekhwawon Guesthouse. This is the guest house where the former presidents Kim Dae-jung and Roh Moo-hyun stayed and had summit meetings with the then North Korean leader Kim Jong-il in 2000 and 2007. So it's expected the South Korean president will be having a luncheon soon, but we don't know where that luncheon is going to be held, if it's going to be this guest house or someplace else. But we are expecting the South and North Korean leaders to arrive here at the Paekhwawon guest house quite soon. And this is the live broadcast we're receiving from Pyongyang, the first ever live broadcast of the Inter-Korean Summit in history.
Yes, so as Jung-hee reminded you there, we aren't just filming some random building. That is where the leaders of the two Koreas are going to arrive very shortly. We were expecting them around 5 minutes ago, but they have yet to arrive. We're going to be with you for the remainder of the next 3 days, pretty much 24 hours a day, covering the ins and outs of this summit, which has such crucial importance to the Korean Peninsula and the wider world, not to say the administration of a certain Donald Trump in the White House. So while we continue to look at that rather white building in Pyongyang, let's talk a bit more about what we might expect.
Presumably, there's a pretty nice garden there. The name Paekhwa means 100 flowers.
Right.
I think this is, as we talked about, probably with the flower garden and the lake that they have, that gives a pretty good route to have a walk, and it has been kind of became a tradition, both leaders taking a walk and talk about the substantive issues.
Yeah, well, it's a very well-groomed garden, and the grounds look immaculate, as you might expect. Yeah, so we just wait and see. So perhaps what Jung-hee said, there was reports that, remember, if you cast your mind back to April when President Moonjaein and Kim-jong-un took that now famous walk along the bridge and sat on the bench. Initially we thought they might break away after 2 minutes, but it went on and on and on, and they ended up speaking for well over half an hour. So it's clear that Moon Jae-in then had a lot on his mind, and you might argue he has even more on his mind ahead of this summit. He will have been briefed by his officials, and he will have been in close contact with his allies in the United States, making sure everything is just a-okay for this summit. So not much happening on the video, we should say that, running late, but you are tuned into our coverage of the third InterKorean Summit of 2018. Professor Song, it looks like you wanted to say something.
Modern technology is great. That I kind of checked out this place in a Google map, and this is a complex with a pretty big acreage on it, and lake is there, and I think this is the same place that Jimmy Carter stayed as well. So this is de facto the highest, kind of a most elaborate guest house that they have. So I think it befits the occasion, and I think that if they have a formal or informal meeting here, probably this is a good place to do it. And we need all the help we can get to get the substantial result out of it.
Well, it certainly is a grand setting. Not many places in North Korea where you'll find what appears to be the 5-star treatment that is going to be given to South Korean President Moon Jae-in. Let's keep the conversation going, because we don't just want to look at a screen like that for too long. Let's talk about Trump and Kim Jong-un, because outwardly they seem to get on pretty well, but it seems, Professor Song, that the gap between the two countries really lies at the substantive level, the policy level. That seems to be the gap that's almost impossible to get across. Do you think there's any way that the relative closeness of the two leaders can go some way to closing that bigger gulf at the policy level?
I think that the alignment of stars, so to speak, is very fortuitous. That they both have, Donald Trump has domestic issues that can be swapped with the kind of a chip or deal that can give to North Korea in exchange for the title of the peacekeeper. And this does not come, this kind of opportunity does not come every day. And what's more important is that, as you mentioned, the personal style of these two are eerily very similar. They both want the attention, I think. They are very media savvy, and they put stress on the personal charisma and the friendship, and even when they're fighting, they engage in the same kind of styles. Right, so it's very remarkable from the side. I don't know what's going on with the Donald Trump, very chummy with all the dictators in the world, Kim Jong-un and Putin and those. But whatever the reason is, it seems like there is a kind of a, as I mentioned before, the fate kind of element to it. And I think that today probably talk will be very indicative of what the direction they go. Because of the time constraint, because of the importance of this thing, they're not going to stay on the pomp and ceremony longer. That's why we see that the talk happening on the first day. And probably that's something that White House is looking at, that China also is looking at, to see what kind of substantive the result they can build on. So today is very important in that regard. And I think the hopeful sign is that all those events and things that are happening has its origin in the Panmunjom Declaration. Mm-hmm. They talked about the visit of Moonjaein in autumn, which is happening right now, mm-hmm. and they talked about the military tension alleviation, including the Western Sea peace district mm-hmm. setting, which is hitting some snag, but they're working on it because Panmunjom Declaration has specified so. And the liaison office, of course, has already been accomplished. So they are following up on the things they talked about, which is a very hopeful sign. Rather than just declaring something and mm-hmm. forgetting about it, they're following up on it. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they spend 17 hours to talk mm-hmm. about the military matters, as I said before, getting down to the details, mm-hmm. I think it's very significant at this point. Same kind of specificity and same kind of detail-oriented approach has to be given to the denuclearization, which is a big ticket item. And I don't know how long would it take, but President Moonjaein has prepared some sort of alternative points. If you cannot get to the CVID level of commitment, then talk about or make a commitment, whether orally or written form, about the inspection. I think that'll give hopeful signs to White House, that'll lead to the visit, summit between the Donald Trump and the Kim Jong-un, and given their similar styles and charisma, and both having a same degree of desire to make things happen for the domestic matters for Donald Trump, and also Kim Jong-un's final kind of the playbook of the nuclear program. I think a pretty good thing could happen, but we got to get there.